The battle of wizards and warriors continues with iron swords. The evil wizard Malkill will take the shape of the earth, wind, water, and fire. Farewell! The fate of the world is in your hands!
You're listening to the Piercing Wizard podcast, and I'm your host, Ryan Willett. I'm a professional body piercer with 20 years experience. I travel around the world teaching technique and safety classes, and I'm a member of the Association of Professional Piercers. Listen in as I talk to my friends and colleagues about our industry so we can all stay sharp.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Piercing Wizard podcast. I am your host Lola Slider, and I'm driving Ryan insane by fidgeting and making too many background noises that he has to edit out later.
Yes. Would you like to start the episode by reading a Ferengi rule of acquisition?
Sure. Okay, you tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. Rule of acquisition number 181. Not even dishonesty can tarnish the shine of profit. That's deep.
Sadly true.
Yeah, should we explain what the rules of acquisition are for people that don't get it?
Yes, you give your description.
The rules of acquisition are Ferengi words to live by from the Star Trek universe, specifically the Deep Space Nine universe, where the Ferengi are traders, space traders.
Yeah, in a way. Yep.
Yeah. Very driven by profit and the acquisition of latinum.
I have a little book that I keep in my travel backpack. I have this one travel backpack that I carry with me everywhere I go in the entire world. It's got all of my various chargers and cables and podcast things and whatever I need for teaching trips and whatever else. But I always have this little book with me, the Ferengi Rules of Acquisition, because they're like, thank you. Heard that coffee cup.
I'm sorry, I was trying so hard to be quiet.
But I just think it's funny because they're just silly made up things for a TV show, but they're actually really good in a business sense, and they're pretty accurate. So how do you want to start this episode?
So we have a couple of topics we're kind of gonna discuss today. Some upcoming videos that are going to be available on your Patreon very soon. We were going to talk about the cultural phenomenon sweeping the piercing zeitgeist this past month, which has been Northwest's finger piercing. We're going to talk about that a little bit. For you, you'll be seeing it for the first time. And we're going to be talking a little bit about your prep work for the oral piercing class that you're doing at UKPP in a couple of weeks. But first, we were going to talk a little bit about our experiences in Poland. We both went to Poland, to Gdansk, a couple of days ago. It was your fourth time?
Let's Gdansk. Yeah, so I don't remember if it's my fourth time being there physically or my fourth time teaching there, because the first time I taught for Professional Piercers Poland was online because it was pandemic time. But I've been to I don't know if it's Dansk or Gdansk. I've heard it pronounced both ways, so I'll say Gdansk. But I've been there the last few years, and this year was the first year that you got to go, which I was really happy with. They've asked you the last few years, but it hasn't really worked out for you schedule-wise. So I was really happy to go there with you.
Yeah, so I've been invited a few times, and it just hasn't lined up where I've been able to take the time off of work to commit to that many things. But we have cat piercing at the shop full-time now, has kind of taken over in that senior piercer role, so I've been able to travel a little bit more. But yeah, I've been invited a few times, and I've really wanted to go because that particular community, the Polish community in the surrounding areas, have been very supportive of me in the past and really encouraging, and I really wanted to make the effort to get out there and contribute to what they were putting on. So I'm really glad that I finally got to take them up on the invitation and go out and experience it, and it was a really, really good experience.
And so I didn't realize this. You wrote it down in your notes. This was the first time you've ever done live piercing at a conference before?
Yeah, so for those of you that haven't attended a similar event, because of course there's not live piercing at APP or UK APP for mainly licensing reasons, I'd imagine, but conferences like BMX in Germany do facilitate live piercing at the event. So one of the ways that can manifest is you can agree to take part and people can ask to get pierced by you and either have access to jewellery there or purchase jewellery from a vendor there, and there's sterilisation equipment and disposable tools and that kind of thing made available to facilitate. So I've been offered to do that a couple of times and I've always said no. And with this being my first trip to Poland and it being a smaller event, I thought, well, you know, maybe I could give it a try. And so I agreed to do some live piercing, which I haven't done before. So that was my first time experiencing that.
Yeah, it was cool. The only day that I had available to pierce was the day that Jim was doing his big speech. So I really wanted to see that. So it didn't work out for me. But I think next time I'm in Poland, I would really like to prioritize it and pierce a few people. It's interesting. It is hectic. It is stressful. But it is impactful in a way too. So it's cool to do the whole like piercers thing. But it didn't really line up for me this time. But it worked really good for you. We did a mix of some workshop stuff, the whole open techniques thing. We both did some individual classes. We got to take a few individual classes, and I thought it was a really fun event. That I really enjoy that community. Everybody's really kind there.
Yeah, it was my first time in Poland and I got to practice speaking a little bit of Polish. I do that thing where I'll like listen to the dialogue and then I'll write it down phonetically so I can learn it phonetically because I don't know what the sounds of different consonants grouped together. Like I can't identify what those sounds are, so I can't read Polish, but I can say things in Polish. And it's one of those weird things where like I've read this before that people from Scotland or like Glasgow in particular, but I think like Scotland in general, are able to like pronounce words from that region. Like it fits the dialogue and the pattern of their speech, whereas like if someone asks me to say some stuff in Spanish or French, I'm going to butcher it terribly and it's going to come out a little bit laughable. I mean, like it's still nice to try and make an effort and have a go at it. So I'm glad that I did that in Poland and managed to stand up in front of a bunch of people and give it a try. I wish I was better at that kind of stuff.
Do you recall any of your Polish phrases?
Witamy zapraszam is like hello and welcome. Jestem Lola is I'm Lola.
I remember dziękuję.
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 Dziękuję. Yeah,
Is,
okay, apparently I
thank
didn't
you.
remember it very well.
Przepraszam is sorry, I think.
Yeah, well.
Sorry.
Maybe the Welsh would be really good with Polish. Lots of extra letters in their words.
Yeah.
So, the whole Patreon thing, like it's a constant in my life. Like no matter where I'm going to or coming from, I'm always working on my next Patreon video. You know, with them coming out monthly, it's not exactly pressure. It's really just trying to find time to give it the time that it deserves. Between the shop and between traveling and between like all the various work. Patreon videos are sometimes tough to keep up with, which is I think why the podcast has gone from weekly episodes to more like monthly episodes, because the videos take up a lot more of my time to produce.
Yeah, I'm not very helpful because I'm a big distraction.
You are, but that's okay because you have to live life too.
Like I don't even I don't recognize fully the amount of time it takes you to do these videos because they're like 20 minutes long usually, or some are a bit longer, a bit shorter. Like you kind of latch on to that number, and then I think this morning you were talking about prepping for the next video and you were like, yeah, there's about 10 hours of work to put into it, and it's like, that's a lot of time.
So the video I'm working on right now is about Austin bars, and we can talk about that in a second, but originally it was going to be about surface bars. It was going to be about vertical forehead surface piercings, like vertical bridge piercings, whatever terminology you might want to use. That was originally going to be my September video, but I have a lot of content. Originally it was just one video example, but then another person came in for the same piercing like a week or two after. So I have a lot of content, And it's not exactly going to be like class length, but it's definitely going to be a very full Patreon video. So that needs more time. So that's going to end up being next month's video. So this month's video I thought would be good to do Austin bars, because I only have the one example, because I've only done the one ever. Austin bar piercings, I honestly had never even heard the term, or at least remembered the term, before I was asked to perform it. So I talk about like the thought process that goes into the piercing, and then, you know, I obviously show the piercing too. So do Austin bar piercings have a place in your piercer memory, in your piercer zeitgeist, or did that kind of come out of left field for you too?
I mean, I was familiar with the term Austin piercing. I remember you were like, oh, have you ever heard of this? And I remember seeing or reading about it on the BME wiki page that kind of listed all of the different piercings that there were, you know, like seeing examples of it on there. I've never had the opportunity to do one, and I think it's placed around sort of early noughties on the timeline, but if people were doing them in the 90s, like, by all means, let me know. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so when I did the piercing and I posted it, I was like, hey, I did an Austin bar piercing. A couple of people were like, oh, Austin bar, I hadn't heard that term in years. So I reached out to those people and I was like, hey, so you've heard of this before. Do you have any recollection of where the name came from? And not a single person could point me in a direction of like the first piercer they saw promote it, or anyone who's performed one or has a healed one or anything. So I don't really know where the name came from. I searched as much as I could online, and the best I could find was that it's named after the first person to get one, not the first person to perform it or whatever, but the first person to get one documented. But I couldn't even find where it was documented. So really interesting piercing. It's not exactly a nasolang because it doesn't go through the septum cartilage. It's more forward than that, and it's lower than that. But it's a really interesting piercing that goes across the length of the nose. So I've got a video of that in the works, and that should be done within just a few days.
So speaking of piercings that are a little bit more unusual and potentially a little bit of a throwback, the finger piercing made its way back into popular culture in recent weeks.
So, okay, when you brought up this morning that we could record a podcast today, you were like, well, how about the Northwest piercing? And I thought that like that was the name of a new piercing. It's like, oh, is this like a new whatever? And then you said it was a finger piercing done on the human being Northwest. And that completely, first time I had ever heard of it. So you gotta show me the picture, because you said
Right.
that it's like blown up online. But apparently, Old Man Ryan is not plugged into the zeitgeist.
Right, so you've never seen this before. So let me just pull up the example for you. So this is it here.
Okay, is that like a little tiny surface bar
Maybe, or maybe I think it's just like a curve, maybe.
or a curve? Okay. So, okay, number one, this is a 12-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Let me say first.
There's another angle.
Ooh, yeah, that's a curved barbell. All right. I'm not going to judge what adults do to their own bodies, but I also think it's probably not great that we encourage something like this on a 12-year-old, because that's 100% going to scar. That's 100% going to grow out. So, like, I don't know. It's a slippery slope when it comes to stuff like this. Parental consent and all that stuff. Like, I pierce minors, I pierce children, but I definitely draw certain lines of like what I'll perform on certain age categories.
Austin bars.
Austin
Austin bar on a 12-year-old.
Sure. You know, like, let's just do, okay, so it's nasolangs from 8 years old and up.
Okay.
So, I don't know, what is your thought on the Northwest piercing? What, did this happen, was this pierced recently, or was this just documented recently?
I don't know. I know marginally more than you know. So I only knew about this because piercers were talking about it. And piercers do this very silly thing, and we do, where we go, nobody look at this picture.
Right.
And then they share the picture absolutely everywhere. And you're like, you know, if none of you had brought this up, I would have no idea this was going on.
Well, that's the exact moment that we're in right now, because I didn't know that was a thing until you just showed me.
Yeah, so it was brought to my awareness because piercers were kind of making memes about it, and, you know, like, putting out some safety information and all this kind of stuff. And like, my feelings about it, I don't really have very many feelings about it, to be honest with you. I think I am more concerned about the fact that they're 12, because when I saw the picture, I was like, oh, whatever, you know, they're 15, 16, we were doing worse stuff like that. And then when I read they're 12, I was like, fuck, like, man, fuck the person that did that to them. Just, you know, through the lens of like, they're 12 though, you know, like that for me is the notable part, not the fact that it's a finger piercing.
There's got to be like some sort of a multiplier though when you're like the child of a mega millionaire, where you've probably grown up a bit faster than the average 12-year-old. So like, I don't know, in celebrity years, a 12-year-old is more like a 17-year-old, but still, it's tough because like when you talk about piercings like this, I'm not trying to come at it from the perspective of like old man Ryan doesn't think that people should experiment with stuff. I experimented on lots of stuff. I'm covered in rejection scars and failed piercing scars from experimenting. Some of them I did on myself when I was a teenager. I think that you have to kind of like, you have to draw a line as a piercer, being like, well, no matter how rich the parent is or how much money they're throwing at you, sometimes you still have to say no because you're a professional. Is that too rigid of a way to look at it?
I don't think that it's too rigid to say you shouldn't pierce a 12-year-old's finger and take money for it. I don't think that's...
Am I being a little bit too worried about it being controversial?
Yeah, if I'm judging anybody, like, I would be judging the person who took money to pierce a 12-year-old's finger. I don't judge the 12-year-old at all. And like, so weirdly, my feelings around children getting piercings and children piercings themselves is probably more open and liberal than some people might expect with me being a professional piercer, because we are surrounded by a lot of content online that's about, you know, safety and danger and, you know, this is a child and all of this stuff. And like, in my head, professional me would never offer that as a service and would actively discourage anybody that wants that service. But me as a person who was at one point a 12-year-old girl and a 15-year-old girl and an 18-year-old girl, I can tell you that the things that your friends were doing at that time were so much more dangerous than getting finger piercings. Like, you know, I'm not going to list the activities, but what teenagers get up to, sometimes it's like when you look back on it in your own life, and you look at the ways things could have gone, it can be frightening to think like, what were we doing? You know, It can be frightening.
There are plenty of points where I'm like, oh, I could have died.
Right. Or, you know, anything could have happened. You're going to meet people off the internet at that age, like, or at least you were when I was growing up, and meeting people on the internet was common. So like, in my mind, just as a person, if the worst thing that Northwest has going on right now in their life is that they've got a finger piercing, they are doing so much better than so many other young people. So it's like, I can't bring myself to be alarmed about it or in a state of panic about it, because I'm like, as a professional, do I think it's a good idea? No, I think it's a terrible idea. But just as a person, if that's the worst thing that's happening to them, if that's the most dangerous thing that's happening to them, I'm a little relieved.
Yeah, so it brings up a thing as a piercer. Like you said, piercers tend to put a megaphone in front of the thing that they don't want people doing. Like, a couple months ago, Cardi B got her butt crack pierced.
Was that just months ago?
Well, okay, so I just did a quick Google, and a lot of the stories are from around January.
Oh, okay.
So who knows when she was pierced, but that's when like a lot of the news broke, maybe mentioned on a podcast or something. And then people post it, and they're like, don't ever do this thing that I'm showing you. I try to be media savvy, and I try to think in 2025, running a business, all these other things. If there's something that you don't want people talking about it, number one rule is you yourself should not be putting it right in front of them, because like then they're going to at least be talking about it, whether or not they're going to maybe decide to get it or not. So if I don't want people flooding my studio asking if we do butt crack piercings or finger piercings, I'm not going to be reposting these celebrity things of like, this celebrity got this and this celebrity got that. If it's a bad idea, I'm just going to, you know, let the media cycle pass and then let people forget about it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how people forget that when you promote something to a child or a young audience and say, this is really dangerous, that you think that's going to make them not want to get it? That you think that their minds work like, oh, okay, I'll do the sensible thing. No, they're just going to seek it out more. Like, the majority of people I hear talking about clairs are piercers. The majority of people I hear talking about horizontal tongue piercings are piercers. You know, and now this finger piercing, it's piercers. So it's like you say, it's at what point do your best intentions inadvertently become promotion of the thing that you're trying to prevent?
Yeah. So that's one way to look at it. But I don't know if it's fairness or just like, you know, stirring shit, but like I want to kind of talk about the flip side of it. And we have to talk about this in terms of as adults. I don't want to like debate a 12-year-old getting their finger pierced, because I 100% think it's irresponsible for someone to pierce a 12-year-old's finger. But let's remove that aspect of it. Let's say we're talking about on adults that can make a decision about their own body. Where is that line, or where could or where should that line be? Do you think adults have the responsibility and like the ability to just say like, well, if it's not causing me harm, if it's not definitely going to make my finger fall off or something like that, like shouldn't I be able to make a decision to try something even though it's incredibly likely to fail? And like that brings up kind of when I got asked to do the Austin bar piercing, the person said that they contacted a bunch of other shops. Most of the shops were just like, we don't even know what that is, no. And then some of them were like, I don't know if that's safe or not. You know, and then the funny part is like the client was like, oh yeah, I contacted all these other shops. And then they pointed me to you. And it's like, well, great. I'm glad that I was the last person on your list. But
oh, I get that.
Yeah.
That happens to me sometimes.
Yeah, I looked at it from the line of like, okay, why don't you come in and we'll have a conversation about it. I will check out your nose. I'll do an evaluation. I'm pretty competent when it comes to anatomical evaluation and understanding what's going on under the surface and things like that. I didn't see any sort of like risk to it. I think the biggest risk of a piercing like that is just like, well, it doesn't really heal very well, so you can pull it, but it's not going to be like a medical risk for someone. So in a scenario like that, it was just an honest conversation with an informed adult to say, I can perform the piercing. I don't see any safety concerns. This is what's going on under the surface. These are the risks that I would give you, and the top of the list risk would just be like, well, it just stays irritated, or just you get some scarring and you might have to pull it, not like your nose falls off. So how do you kind of rationalize like the freedom of being able to express yourself, to be able to experiment with your own body as a consenting adult, and you know, if and how we should be facilitating things like that?
I think that it comes down to trust in a lot of different ways. Like when I look at the work that I did 10 years ago, I was a lot more adventurous. Like sometimes you'll see an old post and be like, oh, that's so cool, but I'd never do that now. You know, like you get that feeling. Like I don't know if you ever get that looking at some of your older work.
Frenum piercings, under the tongue frenum piercings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like there's things that you used to do that you don't now. And the reason that you don't, or the reason that I don't, isn't anything to do with a failure rate of the piercing or a risk of the piercing. It's to do with a lack of trust of the person. And that's something that makes me very sad when it comes to like the erosion of trust between clients and piercers, because when I started piercing, someone would seek you out for something maybe that was a bit rarer, and it really felt like you had a relationship of trust, which is like, okay, I'm going to do this for you, and the person is like grateful that you're doing it for them, and you go into it together mutually understanding the risks, prepared for the risks, and really believing that this might be temporary, this might need to get pulled, is that okay? And like there was a genuine understanding between the pair of you. Now there's things that I won't do just because I've had so many situations where you explain the risks to someone again and again and again, and then you do the thing, and then one of the risks pops up and they're like, oh, but I didn't think you meant it. Or, oh, I didn't know that would actually happen, or I didn't think that would happen to me. And it's like, oh, it can't happen to meism that's risen, that has pushed me away from doing things that are more experimental, because I don't feel like I have that degree of trust back and forth anymore. And that for me culturally is what's really changed. It's not that things are any more or less safe than they've ever been. It's that there's been an erosion of trust between the two people, the person facilitating and the person receiving, because it's not just you and them anymore in this experience together. It's you, them, and this device in their back pocket that will reinforce every idea that they have. And that, you know, it makes me sad that there's things that I don't do anymore just because I'm not prepared to have those discussions just endlessly. You know, it's one of the reasons I just stopped doing dermal anchors, because I can't tell you how many times I had that conversation of like, yeah, it looks like it's coming out, and it's, oh well, why is it coming out? And you're like, remember we talked about this like again and again and again, that this was inevitable with a dermal anchor.
I also think that there's this like really ugly weaponization of common results to piercings like that. Let me phrase it this way. A client goes into shop A and gets a piercing. They're maybe told of like, hey, this could reject, or this could be difficult to heal, or, you know, whatever these things that are likely to come up. And then they go to piercing shop B when those problems happen because they want to get a checkup somewhere else. And then piercing shop B is like, oh my God, they're a hack, they're terrible, they did this thing that should never be done. But it's like a really common, simple thing. Surface anchors rejecting is a great example. Surface anchor rejects, somebody goes into another shop, and then that shop is like, oh, well, they obviously did it bad, or whatever. Like they try to weaponize.
Yeah, mine never reject.
Yeah, these small things, because it's local business, it's local competition. It's like, I need to make them look bad so that I can get their customers. And like, I've been guilty of it earlier in my career also. Like, I try to be really cautious about that kind of stuff now. I try to talk to my staff about it too, is like, you know, you always want to focus on the high road. You don't want to be like, I would never, when it's like, but you have, you know, maybe not now, but maybe 10 years ago. So like, what I would rather see in a scenario like that is, well, you know, piercings can become irritated. If it's like a worrisome thing, that's maybe different. But if it's these small things, like a piercing is a little bit red, or it's a little bit irritated, try to think of how you would talk to your client for a piercing that you performed. You know, maybe you can help them to get it better. Maybe you can inform them a little bit more for the next time. But probably not a great idea to just like, use it as an attack on another local shop.
Yeah, so I just feel like, obviously I've never done finger piercing, and I wouldn't offer finger piercing.
Oh my God, can I tell you that I have?
Yeah.
So one thing that pops out of my mind, and it's a surface anchor, not like a surface bar, like a curved barbell or something.
Oh, you know what? I'm lying. I'm sure I have done a finger surface anchor. Oh, well, at least kind of at the base of the thumb. I've done that.
Oh, I've done it straight up on the finger. Like, it was at a tattoo convention also, which is like another strike against the thought process. But it was just a slow day. I was getting ready to pack up, and somebody was like, hey, I want to do this. And I was like, these are all the reasons why it's a bad idea. It's never going to work out. And they were like, yeah, but I want to do it anyway. And I was like, okay. You know, and it was just one of those things where I regret saying yes, but was it causing harm, or was it just kind of like, you know, swing and a miss sort of a thing?
So this word harm is interesting because it's ambiguous. Like, something that I talk about sometimes is how, like, what's safe and what's dangerous seems culturally relative. It's like this little keyhole that we look through that shifts one way or the other depending on what point in time we are. Like, piercings are piercings, and they've generally always been about as safe or as dangerous. I mean, there have been improvements in hygiene and improvements in jewelry material quality and things of that nature. Other than that, things that were dangerous 10, 20, 30 years ago are still, you know, near enough in the same ballpark of danger as they are today. So how we view things does seem to shift based on whatever the narrative is at the time. So like an example that I would give is smiley piercings. Like, smiley piercings have become this like, oh, they're so dangerous. And
define a smiley piercing for people who don't already know what it is.
So it's the frenulum that connects your upper, I don't know why I like pulled my upper lip when I was saying that. I'm showing you all my smiley. So it's the frenulum that connects your upper inside lip to the top of your gums, basically. And some people have one and some people don't. And it's a little piercing you would get there, usually done with a ring. And the ring would sit where the bead was in between your two front teeth. Or if you had a horseshoe, which was never my preference, you would have a bead kind of on the front of each of your front teeth.
And it would show when you made a big
Smiled.
smile, so it would be called a smiley piercing.
So this is one of those piercings that overnight it felt became labeled as dangerous, and I don't know where that came from. I was never kind of part of that conversation, but it was I'm not saying that it's not harmful to your teeth. It is, and I say that as someone whose teeth are fucked, and they're fucked because of piercings and bad body jewelry. So I do understand what it is to knacker your teeth with bad piercings and body jewelry. I really do. But it wasn't a piercing. I mean, I must have done hundreds of them on people that were fine. You know, like I never had a single client have an issue with one. I'm not saying that other people haven't experienced that, but it doesn't flag in my mind as like, you know, the top 10 or top 5 of the dangerous piercings that you could get. And then it suddenly became like very dangerous, and people were even saying irresponsible and even saying unethical. And then, but at the same time, we're seeing these kind of inverse vertical labret on the top piercings. I think that, did you say they're called like angel fangs?
No, so it gets complicated.
Okay.
So like a big thing for me is the fangs thing is like the it trend this year. But years ago, it was the bites trend. So like piercers would get those phone calls and it was like, hey, do you do cyber bites and angel bites and devil bites and, you know, whatever. And a lot of times you'd be like, what? But now I think it's like the fangs. I think it's vertical variations of a lot of those paired lip piercings. So if you think lower lip, center, vertical, vertical labret. And then vertical upper lip would be like, you know,
Gestrum.
a gestrum. Yeah. And then, so now if you think of pairs on the lower lip, pairs on the upper lip, I think that a lot of us have seen that trend of people getting paired vertical or slightly angled upper lip piercings, and I think that those are called angel bites.
Yeah,
especially if there's a spike on the bottom of
Yeah.
them. And then there's an inverse version of it,
Right.
where the top end piece would be on the interior of the lip, and I think those are called kitten bites.
Okay.
If they have a spike on the bottom of them, I'm not sure. But
I feel like our bones are turning to dust as we try and describe
I can
this.
feel like a cane
A
starting
bright
to
light.
like levitate towards my hand. But yeah, so like that's stuff that I've seen recently, and like the thing that immediately sets off the red flag for me is like, are you trying to tell me that the interior end piece is not coming in contact with the teeth or the gums? And
It
like,
100% is.
yeah.
And so the thing is, for those of you that can't imagine it, imagine a curved bar pierced so that there's an exit point kind of where the lips meet each other, and then the other exit point is inside the mouth, kind of just in front of the incisors. And this area is so easy to damage when it comes to gum erosion, and it's also so painful. Speaking from experience, I had an abscess and a root canal in one of my incisors, and it was like, to this day I can remember how awful that was, and it was related to piercing. People will pull the upper lip up to show and demonstrate, look, the discs are flat, like it's flat against the skin. And I'm like, that area is so mobile. They're not flat when that person smiles, when they make certain facial expressions, when they eat. They're moving around all over the place, and they will be grinding down that very delicate part of the mouth. Now, I'm not saying don't do those piercings, or, you know, like don't offer them, or that they're unethical or dangerous. But if you're saying don't do a smiley, but here, let me do this thing for you, it's completely nonsensical. Like, it does not make sense to me at all, and it feels like we're deciding what's culturally safe or dangerous based on what's popular.
Yeah, and based on whether or not you yourself feel like doing it. Like, I think piercers can justify it if it's something that they want to do, and especially something they want to charge for, then they can pull out like a long list of justifications.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's another piercing that somebody else is doing that they choose not to do, then they can have the inverse of it. They can have a whole list of reasons why you should never ever do it and why it's unethical to do it. So it's not like either of us are saying you should do these or you should not do these, but I think like piercers need to really think about the concept of even piercings that aren't dangerous, they can still cause harm on a smaller scale. Tooth damage, gum damage, things like that could be incredibly expensive or just complicated to fix from like a dental aspect. So, smiley piercings, I did some too. I would do ones where like my goal was, just like you said, to have like a very small bead resting in between the front teeth, kind of right in that little triangle of where the front teeth met the gums. And then I really stopped doing that because like if you couldn't nail that exact placement for where the bead would sit, if it was a little bit lower, the bead was just almost grinding in a way on the surface of their teeth, which was going to eventually annihilate their enamel. Or if it was a little bit higher up, it would absolutely start to make an indentation in their gums. And like the next step after an indentation in the gums is gum erosion. And the next step after that is losing your teeth. Mm-hmm. So, you know, took smiley piercings off my menu more than 15 years ago for sure. And then with certain lip piercings, I talk about it in a lot of the classes where I teach about tongue piercings and lip piercings. I talk about the oral damage that I did in my own mouth. Same thing, you know, had piercings that are well placed by today's standards, but when I did them, I still didn't understand the perfect fit of jewelry and getting like, you know, the internal side of the jewelry to nest into my lip a little bit so it wasn't likely to come in contact with my teeth or my gums. But being someone that has a couple of lip piercings, like, and anybody would know that you get that once in a while thing of like it whacks your tooth or you feel it grind against your teeth because you make certain facial expressions. Your lip stretches out a lot and there's nowhere for the jewelry to go except back into your teeth and gums. And then something like those vertical inverse upper lip piercings, it would be
starting to understand why people just say kitty fangs.
Yeah.
It's for less of a mouthful.
It's very easy to understand or like visualize or imagine that jewelry grinding into someone's teeth or gums. So if you want to do that and, you know, like if you feel confident that the jewelry is not coming in contact with the teeth or the gums, continue to do it. Do whatever you want in your own business. But, you know, try to really think about the long-term wear, the long-term implications of having jewelry there. And at the same time, you know, if you're offering those piercings, maybe you should be a little bit softer in your criticisms about maybe some other piercings.
Yeah, like the last 3 years or so, I would say, is when I've seen the most of the paired upper vertical librets, which I think is what they call the angel.
Yeah, the post-COVID oral piercing boom.
Yeah, so like I would say that's kind of the past 3 years, and it's really more the past 1 year that I've seen the inverse of that, kind of like, I'm not even going to try and put all the words together, let's just say kitty fangs, the past year. And I'm seeing them in such volume that they're being churned out at such a speed that I know that there are people who are just doing them because they're excited to get to do a pair. And there's nothing wrong with being excited. I mean, you were excited to do the Austin bar.
Yeah.
I've been excited to do things that are unusual and that are rare. But we're seeing these things churned out in such a way where I'm like, we have no industry knowledge or industry consensus as to what the long-term healing effects of these are. We don't. There aren't, I mean, how many people have been walking around for 5 years with a set or for 10 years with a set? Like I'm not going to say that that person doesn't exist, but I haven't seen evidence of that. So it does make me curious as to what the long-term implications are, again, before we start picking and choosing what other piercings are safe or dangerous. So this is what I mean when I say it just feels like that little window just shifts almost arbitrarily depending on what's in fashion. Like I've just recently started doing more tongue piercings again. Like they've been becoming more popular, so I've been doing more. And tongue piercings for me are remarkably uncomplicated. I just say to each client, like, do you understand you could chip your teeth with this? Do you understand if you're playing with it, if you don't have it downsized, even if you just have a bit of an accident with it, you could chip your teeth? And they say, yep, totally understand. I'm like, right, okay, let's do it. Like, I don't make it any more complicated than that, because sometimes I think when you make things more complicated, you start to lose the person's attention a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just want to keep it, like, really straightforward. Or do you want this enough that you'll be okay with it if it chips one of your front teeth? Mm-hmm. And if the person's like, yep, then that's good enough for me. But of course, I'm working on adults, you know?
Just kind of think through it. Like, we're not telling you to, like, not be a creative body piercer. There's plenty of stuff that I've done for the first time. There's plenty of stuff that I've seen piercers do online. And then I have the thought process of, like, How would I do that? Would I do that? Should I do that? Like, is somebody ever even going to ask me for it? Like, what's the one right here that just goes straight through the lip? What is that? Ashley piercings? Right. When Ashley piercings came out, we've had the conversation before. Some people were doing them where it was like a totally horizontal piercing with like a disc on the inside, and it would go straight through the vermilion line of the lip, and then you'd have your gem or your whatever attachment on the outside. Some people would do them like basically an inverse vertical labret. And then it starts to have these whole conversations of like, well, how do you get both end pieces totally flat, totally flush? Ashley piercings, I performed 1 or 2, and then I was like, I am not comfortable with the potential risks of someone closing their teeth right down on this backing that's right there.
Yeah, I had an Ashley piercing for a couple of years, and I did that. Like, I bit my teeth down on it, and it was like, it was awful.
Right.
It's really awful.
It's really just think through it. And if you're not sure, if you're not confident how you're going to place it, how you're going to perform it to reduce as much harm as possible to your client, like, is that something you want to say yes to? So we're not exactly telling you say yes or say no. We're just telling you to just think through it.
So obviously there's all of this adventurous and experimental lip piercing going on, and I'm all for experimentation. Like, in a weird way, like, for all the negative stuff I have to say about it, I actually think it's really cool that, like, celebrities, especially younger celebrities, are bringing a spotlight onto body piercing sometimes, because anything that gets that engagement and gives us a chance to have a part in the conversation, I think has value and is pretty cool. So, like, wherever you land on it, I think it's neat still, you know? So whilst all that's going on, you're teaching a lip piercing class at UKAPP in like a week and a half, 2 weeks, where you're going to be covering a pretty broad range of fundamentals of lip piercing. Can you kind of talk about what some of the foundational elements are going to be in that?
Well, I'm still in the middle of writing it. This is the first time I've been performing this version of it. I've done lip piercing classes in the past. I think it's probably been 6 or 7 years since doing one at the APP conference with John Robertson. Hi, John. And I'm starting fresh with this one, so I'm in the process of writing it. And I started to think like, well, there are all these different variations, so many different variations on lip piercings, and I think it would be almost silly to try to include them all. So I'm breaking it down into the fundamentals. Basically, like, I'm going to have a center lip piercing, a center upper lip piercing, vertical piercing, and then talking about paired piercings on the sides. Like, in like really simple, broad terms, I'm going to be talking about some of the fundamentals of choosing the jewelry and doing the marks and all the different anatomical concerns. And then I'm going to be just basically leaving it to the piercers to take those fundamentals and adapt them into whatever bites, whatever fangs, whatever they whatever they want to do to express their creativity for their clients. So it's been a little bit complicated for me to think about how to boil down all of those possibilities into a roughly 1 hour or 1.5 hour class that focuses on the fundamentals and that can kind of strengthen piercers who attend. So it's fun and it's interesting. This will be the first time that I've been performing this version of it. So if you're at the UK APP conference, I would love for you to attend. But it's tough for me to really talk about what that class will be because I'm still like editing and polishing the final version of it.
Yeah, I'm very much the same with teaching. Like, there's knowing what the class is in your mind, and then there's getting it down in a presentation. And that process of trying to get what's in your head into what's in the presentation is sometimes more challenging than people realize, I think, if it's not something that they're used to doing. So, like, it's not unusual for me to be right up to the night before editing, tweaking, and it's not even like changing the information a lot of the times. It's changing the visuals that convey the information and being like, how can I make this the most understandable it could be? Like, I'm doing those tweaks right up until right before, and then re-editing things when I teach classes and see what the response is and see what people connect with or what they don't. I can then make alterations to try and make them stronger. So it is an interesting process.
Yeah, I almost try to write things in reverse. Like, I try to think like, what do I want piercers to understand better or, be able to perform leaving this class, and then what are the ways that I can build towards that information from the start. Like I want to be able to write a class where piercers who have never performed a lip piercing can understand some more information, gain some more confidence, but also a class for piercers who have done loads of lip piercings to maybe look at it a different way, or to strengthen their own methods or their own logic with it. I think only showing the end result of how a piercer does something doesn't really form logic for other piercers. I like to break it down to say, like, this is why I'm approaching it from this direction. This is why I'm utilizing this method or this tool, or this is why I'm choosing this jewelry in this size. This is why I'm putting my marks here.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it, and it looks like it's going to be a good year. I mean, it's the 10th year of the conference, of the event, and you've been there, I believe, for all 10.
No, I missed one. I missed one in a very no, it's okay. It's like it's fine to talk about it. Like, it's for like a personal reason that I had to miss it. It's not like I blew it off or anything like that. But I have left my home for every conference. There was just one that I didn't make it there. So
yeah.
And this is also my first year as a UK APP member, so I think that'll be a nice year for me. 10 years in, first year as a member, so it's pretty cool. We're also like nearing the end of the 2025 conference season, and it's like silly to kind of think of it in a season, but historically, like I've been doing this for long enough where I've seen the season create itself, and now I'm seeing like how kind of amped up and crazy the season has become. Like it basically, like as far as conferences, it used to be the APP conference was historically always around late spring, early summer, June-ish. And then there would be the BMXNet conference, and that historically for a long time was in like early autumn. So it was around September, maybe around October sometimes. But now all these other conferences have sprung up around kind of like those two time periods. So there's like this fall season of conferences, and a lot of it was the zenith of BMXNet. The way that it works like economically is some of these conferences are sister organizations or can ask the APP for financial assistance. So the way for the APP to kind of save money on some of those like education investments is to say, all right, we're going to send a piercer to BMX, but then they'll stick around for a week and then they'll teach at this other conference or something like that. So that's why so many conferences are in that kind of early fall time, because it all kind of grew out of this concept of like conferences sharing instructors with other conferences. So now you have so many conferences in Europe and beyond, and we've been fortunate enough to be asked to loads of them. I love the experience, I love the communities, but it's kind of my maximum point. You know, like I've learned like the maximum amount of time that I can stay away from home for non-vacation reasons and non-income reasons, and like I've kind of found my limits. And next year I have to kind of like plan really carefully what conferences I can commit to go and teach at. And like you were telling me that you've had kind of some thought processes on your teaching plans for 2026 too.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to talk about it because I thought maybe if I talk about it, it might actually happen, Like if when you say something out loud, it kind of makes it more of a real thing. And I'm thinking about teaching less next year, like maybe not zero, because I still really, really value and appreciate the opportunity to be able to instruct, and it means a lot to me that people think I have something of value to share that can be educational for the community. Like that means the world to me. But I'm really feeling this year like I felt it a little bit last year, but this year more so than ever. I've been feeling like just less joy, like
butter scraped over too much bread.
Yes. Spread too thin. Mm-hmm. Because there's always that feeling of stress and anxiety and hard work, but then also community and togetherness, and there's a joyfulness in that makes everything very rewarding. And it's a lot of hard work, but at the end you feel like I've done something good and I've contributed something good. But, you know, this year I've personally been feeling more and more like just a bit overwhelmed with the size and scale to which things have been growing. And, you know, the Polish conference, that was the third conference this year that I've attended, and it's the first one that I haven't cried at. For one reason or another. And that's not to say anything bad happened. Like, BMX was fantastic, APP was fantastic. Nothing happened to me. I just felt so massively overstimulated and unable to escape what was going on. That was just super overwhelming in that respect. Like, when we were in Poland, they had that really cool little area which was literally just like a speaker hidey hole, and it was like just a speaker hidey hole where it's like, hey, you need to disappear, get behind the speaker hidey hole, and you could just hide in there. And other conferences do have variations of that, in fairness, they do, but like I don't want to make out like that's something that's been put on me. I think a lot of it is internalized, and a lot of it is to do with my limited ability to manage very, very busy social situations. But that ability to push myself is something that I've always done with instructing. I've always kind of like pushed through that to get the job done. But whilst I've been doing that, the conferences have been getting bigger and louder and busier and more people and less personal space and less personal boundaries. And that's all been growing at the same time. So I feel like I'm closer to the limit of what I can manage in terms of like physical social interaction at some events, which is kind of like, it's hard for me to admit, but at the same time, it's evidenced by, you know, again, the crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been like a slow march for this volume for me. It was always like, okay, I'm going to go to the APP conference every year that I'm able to. And then it was when I started going to BMX, I remember going for a few years, and then it took a few years off. And then I came back, and I've been going, I don't recall how long, but I've been going to the BMXNet conference every year for probably the last 10 years at least. But I started going in 2008. But this year, it was Brazil, and it was Vegas, and it was Berlin, and it was Gdansk, and now it will be Nottingham, and then after that it will be Tokyo, and all of those are amazing opportunities, and I'm just so appreciative. I'm very appreciative of these conferences, thinking that I can do something to benefit their communities. I'm very appreciative of the fact that I'm welcomed with open arms into these communities. I've met fantastic piercers. I met my partner at a conference.
It's me.
Is you. And like I absolutely love it. But doing this many conferences, and especially a lot of them being kind of squeezed into like a smaller window this year, I do feel the negative effects on my life, on my business, and just on my stress levels. So I think in 2026, I'll still be at lots of conferences, but I think I'm going to try to stay home for probably the first half of the year, something like that. You know, maybe the APP conference in Vegas will be maybe my first conference of 2026, and spend a little bit of time at home and then make whatever decisions for future conferences. So I would still want to be engaged. I still want to contribute as much as I can to this community. But I think this is a year where I feel like I've kind of maybe left myself out of those priority equations a little bit too much.
Can I share a controversial opinion?
Yes.
I like to bury these at the very end because it means that only people that actually like the podcast get to hear them.
Oh, plenty of people already quit by now, I'm sure.
Yeah. I feel as though there's sometimes an air of, whenever we say anything that's negative about the difficulties of instructing, I know that there are people out there that will say, well, why don't you just step aside and give somebody else a shot? You know, like I know that happens. And I've seen little posts here and there on Facebook where people have made comments about how they think instructing should be done. And I would say this, it's not up to me or up to you to step aside. It's up to someone else to push themselves to the front, because these are organizations that are, by and large nonprofits.
None of them are like paying for someone's private yacht.
No. So, these organizations have a limited budget. Their priority has to be making sure that the people attending learn something of value from a trustworthy source. Like, that has to be a big consideration, is the value for the attendees that have paid, that have taken the time off of work to go. So if you think you have something of value to share that's not about ego, that's not about you, but that's about the topic, you have to push yourself to the front. Keep pushing, keep promoting yourself, keep applying. I get rejected for stuff still as well. There have been things I've proposed that have been declined. So it's not unusual to have declinations and to keep on pushing. I think that's far more important than saying, oh, I wish someone else would give me a turn. It doesn't work like that, because there's this limited budget. Nobody's just going to give you a shot with this very limited set of resources that they have, and then platform you in front of a bunch of influential people that are there to gain knowledge and information. That would be a bit nonsensical when you think about it.
I have seen people bomb spectacularly in scenarios very similar to that.
We've both seen a lot of classes, hundreds of classes probably, and we've seen a lot that have been fantastic and a lot that have been okay, and a minority of classes where we can see that someone has really, really struggled. And that's no slight to them at all, because it can be a lot scarier than people realize when you're actually up there. And even doing it, I think, is something to be hugely proud of, however things turned out. But you also have to look at things from the perspective of someone who's paid money, left their home studio, taken the time off of work, traveled, bought a ticket to go to this thing. You don't want to feel like you're there so that you can watch someone's first crack at this. Like, that doesn't leave you feeling like you've had good value for money. So I would just say, if you're someone who thinks, well, I think things should be, going like this or like that, if you have something to say of value, if you have a strong presentation and a strong voice and a strong point of view, you have to push yourself to the front, and don't expect anybody to move to the side for you, because platforming you is never going to be the priority. It's going to be making sure that the audience is given access to an instructor that's trustworthy, that has a good record of showing up on time, of behaving themselves, of representing themselves accordingly, of putting out well-researched information. That's the priority when it comes to budgeting. So I just think, that's something that's worth saying, because I think sometimes there is that element of, hostility when you're not chosen to do something. So I always like to mention, like, I submitted classes for this year that were not accepted. So I did end up teaching classes regardless, but I have things rejected. Many of the speakers that we know also have things rejected as well.
Every year I get stuff like, so
that
within
is part
the
of
structure.
The process.
You can make a proposal, like especially within the APP structure, you submit a proposal if you want to teach a class, do a project, whatever. Every year I submit probably 5 or 6 proposals, and I'm fortunate if I get picked for 1 or 2 of them. So I'm very comfortable with rejection. As far as like experience level as a teacher, I've been teaching since 2008, and like I've put in the work, and I've really grinded to get to the point where I can deliver a good class now. And it wasn't always the case. Like, it needed a lot of practice, and a lot of that practice wasn't standing at the front of a room full of my peers teaching a class. A lot of that practice was trying to articulate my thoughts in an article, submitting that article out there, trying to do public speaking in like a smaller scale, like local Pearson groups, trying to make a presentation to colleagues, or even just like my staff members, things like that. So there's a lot of practice you can do. But yeah, if you want to get the shot at one of these conferences, like, you need to be able to deliver a quality presentation, because like it's serious business now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's all. I just felt like sharing, because I feel like sometimes there is an undercurrent of that, and I see it, and I'm sure you see it as well, but
yeah,
maybe notice it a little less than me.
Well, I think people need to work for their shot. I don't think that anybody just gets like handed a shot, and especially like, a big marquee position kind of a shot. Like, I think a lot of times you have to prove that you'll be able to articulate a thought and deliver that thought, and then once you've kind of shown that you can deliver it, then you get more and more and more opportunities.
Yeah, for solo classes as well, that's another aspect of it, is a lot of people, they don't consider linking up with someone else to teach a co-instructor position. I think last year was the first year at APP that I taught a solo class, and I think that was my 4th or 5th time there. I think the 4th time there.
Yeah, the system now is like a lot of times they'll basically call it junior instructor, senior instructor. So
Yeah.
they'll pair a junior instructor or a newer person with someone with more experience to make sure that the class won't go off the rails. And then if the junior instructor impresses and they can show that they can really do the thing, then maybe they can get their own opportunity to become a senior instructor or a solo instructor.
Right, and that took 4 years for me to get the chance to do. So I think that, you know, if this is something that you're working towards and maybe you're making solo proposals that aren't being accepted, maybe consider reaching out and partnering up with somebody. But
Yep.
yeah, that's my controversial thought for the day.
Well, yeah, it's not all that controversial. I'm sure some people will hear it and they'll be like, well, I don't like that answer. But again, like you can practice a lot first before you think that you're going to go up and teach a class in front of people. Articles and preparation and presentations and in-studio education and all that stuff. So. But I want to say another thank you to Professional Piercers Poland. I really enjoy being welcomed into your community, and thank you so much for inviting both of us to your conference. And
Dziękuję.
Dziękuję. And really looking forward to publishing this Austin Bar video for people because it was a really fun request for me. It was really fun to perform it. And I will see everybody at the UK APP conference with that new lip piercing class for you.
And I will also be there.
Well, yeah, you're going to have some really kick-ass classes.
Yeah.
And then just a quick reminder, my next video coming down the pipeline for Patreon is going to be vertical bridge piercing, facial surface piercings, and I think that's going to be a really cool one, so stay tuned for that. But thanks for listening to a long-winded episode, everybody. We appreciate it.
Bye!
For more information about the show, visit piercingwizardpodcast.com or like Piercing Wizard Podcast on Facebook. For more info about your host, visit precisionbodyarts.com or search Ryan PBA on Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr. If you enjoy the show, you can subscribe on iTunes, Apple Podcast, and Google Play. Music by Benny B. Blanco. Show copyright 2017, Precision Body Arts LLC, all rights reserved.